Hello and welcome to Daytime, your place for scary stories straight from the horror forums of Reddit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more horror tales of things that go bumping the night. On tonight's episode, a man in a relationship with his soon-to-be fiancée finds himself bewildered after he wakes up to her vanished. So don't get a copyright strike, because you can't say that on YouTube.
I've been living with Marielle for 4 years. To say she is my girlfriend is not enough. We're on the edge of getting engaged and making it official, but the pandemic put a pin in our plans. We found lots of new things to do in that time. We agreed early on to get our own hobbies, so we wouldn't go crazy being in each other's faces all the time during lockdown. I started taking online keyboard lessons and drawing, while she got back to her childhood love, online gaming. We both started a diary just to physically see what we're doing from day to day, and to remind us that we're progressing. Marielle became part of a raiding guild in a large online MMO. She's a natural organizer and second in command to the guild leader, called Password. They all have these ridiculous usernames, and hearing her talk to them over Discord sounds like a cheap spy movie. There's Password, Killer, Alder, and a whole bunch of others. My girlfriend calls herself Empty. She says it's a reference to her carefree nature, that she is empty of worry. Yesterday I woke up to find her gone. She took the car, every dollar of our joint account, and a bag of clothes. I didn't hear the car as it left the driveway. She's been acting weird and keeping more to herself than usual. She's been having trouble with her phone and computer, but most of the time we've spent together, she's been her usual loving self. I had no idea. She left an open document on her computer, and I want to see if anyone can make sense of this. It is an excerpt of her diary. Marielle, if you're reading this, please come back. 2019 CDT GMT -5. April 6th, 2021. First off, do not say the cited phrase on video. I'll mark it in cursive. If you do, it'll be replaced with the same video that mine was. It is a rule. I was uploading the in-game footage from our monthly guild meeting when something strange happened. The video was immediately taken down. I got a notice about a part of my video containing copyrighted footage, and the entire video was claimed. I first thought it was a bot, as the claimant was just a long series of letters and numbers, seemingly random. PA01AL, ALKIOS 04, MA08. There was a part of my video that had been marked containing the copyrighted footage, and I just laughed when I saw it. It is a short segment where Password is recounting the guild member who contributed to the monthly donation box in March. It goes, Password 01, Alder, Killer, Austin, 04, Markdown, 08. This meant Password gave $10. Alder gave $40 twice. Killer and Austin gave $40 each. Markdown gave $80 in one sum at the end of the month. I can't stress this enough. You shouldn't say those words on YouTube. And the first thing I noticed about this claim was the claimant itself. The name is basically code for what Password read aloud in the video. PA01, meaning Password 01, for example. Take a second look at it. The other thing I noticed was that the video was taken down, but there's no way to dispute the claim. There's nothing but a big blue submit button. I just pressed it. Maybe I shouldn't have. Instantly, the video turned unlisted, and the part where Password is reading was replaced with a weird video clip. I'll link it. It is this odd inverted black-white clip of some kind of black background with a hint of cables. It is a mess. The text unauthorized in a series of numbers and letters run in the top of the corner. There's a monotone sound blaring. In the middle of the video, it jump cuts to a face holding up a finger to its lips, as if shushing the viewer. The figure has part of a face, part of a torso, and a hand. That's all. We can't see any eyes, cheeks, hair, nothing. Anonymous. The clip plays, and then the video resumes. I showed it to my guildmates, and they had no idea what was going on. I'm looking into this in the morning. We've got a raid tonight. 0821. CDT, GMT -5, April 7th, 2021. The numbers and letters correspond with the username of the claimant, which in turn is short for the phrase we accidentally said in the video. I think it might be some sort of key phrase embedded into the content ID system. 8 seconds, 15 hundredths. The original clip was just past 9 seconds, so there is a difference. It recognizes the phrase takes your video down and replaces your clip with something that censors the code if you submit. It seems fine in writing though. Maybe it changes if I upload it somewhere a content recognition software is running. Anyway, I've emailed the YouTube support about it. 12:48 CDT, GMT -5. April 15, child, 2021. 3 emails, no response. We've taken out the code part of the video and re-uploaded it, no problem. 2206 CDT, GMT -5. April 16, 2021. I got a call just now. It was just a monotone noise. I recognized it from the video. The caller ID just said submit, like the little blue button I clicked on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I accidentally bugged something in the algorithm. I'm gonna do an experiment. 0406 CDT, GMT -5. April 17, 2021. I've been up all night. I made a video on my phone with me just reading the keywords and uploaded it to Twitter. The tweet just got deleted. I got a DM from a user with the same name as the YouTube claimant with just the word unauthorized in all caps. I've tried Instagram and TikTok, and it is all just taken down. It only seems to be YouTube where it can't just be deleted and is instead replaced and made private. Searching for the username gives literally no Google search results, not even one. 0606 CDT, GMT -5. April 17, 2021. Got a text from an unknown number. It just said unauthorized. 0631 CDT, GMT -5. April 17, 2021. Turned my phone off. Kept getting spammed by text messages all saying unauthorized. 1251 CDT, GMT -5. April 17, 2021. I turned on my phone and got another call from submit. This time I tried saying the words into the monotone. The tone just stopped. I sat there quiet. 6 seconds passed, then I heard this robotic voice say, unauthorized. I think this system believes I'm trying to access something I'm not authorized to get into. Next time, I'll try saying something else. 1812, CDT, GMT -5. April 21st, 2021. It has been quiet for a couple of days, but I got another call tonight. This time, I said submit. The monotone disappeared, then the voice responded, confirm. I just repeated submit. Then, the weirdest thing happened. It sounded like someone trying to pick up the phone at the other end, but there was a struggle. I could hear a no, but the call was cut short. I recorded the entire thing. A friend of mine is looking into the claimant on YouTube. Apparently there's some sort of invite-only forum for people who specialize on internet sleuthing and looking up the real person behind certain usernames. 2356 CDT, GMT -5, April 26, 2021. No response yet. 2 guys on the opposite team came up to me in the battlegrounds and begged me to kill them, over and over. My guildies laughed their asses off, but I found it kind of weird. It wasn't just trolling, it seemed off. 0941, CDT, GMT -5, May 4th, 2021. There was a hit on the username. There was a password leak from a game developer back in 2004, where someone had that username. There's also a password, Zamercand, with every vowel replaced with a 6. I typed it out on my phone as a reminder to myself, and it just went black. Complete factory reset as soon as I put in that last D in the password. What fuck? 1412, CDT, GMT -5, May 4th, 2021. I got my phone to work, and as soon as it started up, I got called again. I started the recording. This time, I said the username, then the password, in order. The voice said confirm, and I actually got a ringing noise, as if calling someone. The other end picked up, but they were quiet. I tried explaining that this was a mistake, and that whoever they were, I just didn't want anything to do with them. Blameless, they said. You're blameless. It was a man's voice, old, hoarse throat. Yes, I am, I responded. It is all a mistake. There was such a loud noise that I dropped the phone. The voice screamed out, blameless, so loud that my phone just fried its own loudspeakers. My ears were ringing for minutes. My phone is beyond saving at this point. I think the battery snapped in half. Needless to say, the recording was lost. 1806 CDT, GMT-5, May 16th, 2021. Someone pointed at me in the grocery store today. Young guy, late teens, glasses. He just pointed at me and said, blameless. He had this weird blank stare. He lives around here, I've seen him before. I just got out of there. Freaked me out. 22:20, Central Daylight Time, GMT-5, May 16th, 2021. People are stalking me in-game. They're sending me private messages asking me to kill them. Over and over, begging and pleading. They keep calling me blameless. My guildies aren't laughing about it anymore. It's on 0301, CDT, GMT-5, May 17, 2021. Someone joined our Discord, just screaming and crying. They got muted and banned. They tried joining under a different name, but our moderators didn't let them through. We've put up a temporary hold on new members. 0840 CDT, GMT-5, May 17, 2021. Things are getting out of hand. I haven't slept, but I'm not tired. I'm off the computer. Carl called me blameless in his sleep. He just flipped over, looked at me, and murmured it. I don't think he was even awake. Why am I not tired? No phone, no computer, nothing. I'm off-grid. Well, except for the pad I'm writing this on. 0856 CDT, GMT-5, May 17, 2021. Blameless. Blameless, blameless. How the F, blameless, blameluk are the S blameless, I doing this I'm not blamable. Even connect SBL TED to the inner AME netless. 1201 CDT, GMT-5, May 26, 2021. I'm on Carl's computer. It is Wednesday. I don't sleep anymore. I don't get tired. Awake for 9 days. Blameless is not something you're, it is like a title. They follow the title, not the person. Carl keeps saying blameless in his sleep. Someone left a gun on the hood of my car. I thought about calling the police, but I just left it on the sidewalk. I took a walk in the woods behind the house today, and someone was screaming off the path. They were screaming that I had to kill them. I heard running. There were 3 of them. I got away. I hid in the bushes while they were crying. Submit was not just a button. It is a choice you do. I was an idiot who chose to submit. I am blameless now. 0541 CDT GMT-5, JUNE 06, 2021. I killed for the first time today, and it made the rest shut up for a while. They kind of forced me, but not really. They put the gun in my hand, but I just wanted them to fucking stop screaming. It was the sweet release, and my ears stopped ringing. I even got a bit tired. I might sleep tonight. My stomach churned. I wanted to eat them. Just delete and remove everything about them. They chose to submit too, but they are not the blameless. 0336 CDT GMT-5, JUNE 12, 2021. 18 of them, and there are more coming. We were in a clearing and they were waiting for me. There were white vans parked nearby, but I didn't care who watched. I just started killing. I wanted the begging to stop the sounds, to stop the screaming. The silence feels like being reconnected to the might of God. I miss just hearing nothing. I ate so much. On 0516 CDT GMT-5, June 18th, 2021. Carl said it in his sleep. My first instinct was to kill him, to eat, but I didn't. This is all so fucking absurd. I'm collecting my thoughts. I agreed to something I didn't know what it was. There was something that changed in me. I was marked. Some kind of dormant system picked up my accidental code, and it woke up. It woke up at a target. Carl, when you read this, I've left town. I don't want to hurt more people. I'm going into the woods where most can't find me. I don't know what other changes there will be. I barely eat, I don't sleep. My skin is losing color, and there are these blotches in my throat that make me sound weird. Hoarse throat. I just keep waiting to hear someone ask me to kill them. It's like a phantom voice, just out of reach. They just trigger something in me, and I go into this rage. Just thinking about it makes me so fucking mad. I keep getting these thoughts that aren't mine. A spot in the ocean. A woman on the edge of a cove holding my hand to the braying sound of desperate worshipers. Black rain rising from the earth, daintily falling back into the clouds. Lightning frozen in the sky like bursting veins. Breathing boils of flesh and tendons, willingly given. I'm not in love with you anymore, Carl. I love the cove and the hatchet man. I love me. I'm blameless. I have to leave to save you. I don't even want to anymore, but I've already committed to doing so. If I were to change my mind now, I'd do terrible things to you, but I've already decided. I've already promised myself I wouldn't change my mind, no matter what. Even if it would mean you staying with me forever. Even if it would mean you standing by my side at the edge of the cove. Love eternal. Even if it meant us submitting. I won't do it. I'll leave you to a tragic life not knowing what God means. Because I promised myself I would, and I'm so fucking sorry. I want you to find me. I want you to submit. I also know I do not want to want this. But I do. Please don't. The document had about 180 pages after this, just filled with the word blameless, repeated over and over. I've tried cleaning it up so I could post it, but some of what she's saying is just complete nonsense. I don't believe in internet voodoo, and I don't know what the online community knows. I think she got involved with something. I've tried talking to her guildmates, but they haven't heard anything from her for over a month. She has no history of mental illness in her family. We've called the police and we're tracking the car, but so far we've got nothing. I've tried doing what she mentioned, to upload a video of the key phrase. The same thing still happens, it gets replaced with the clip she linked. That's a thing, and I've submitted it to the police. They have no idea what to make of it, but they believe it might be some kind of cult. I don't even know what to think anymore, what to feel. I miss her so much. And to think she's been through something so huge on her own just churns my stomach. Why wouldn't she tell me? Marielle is not a bad person. She doesn't do what this text says she does. She doesn't believe in ghosts and goblins. She's a gardener, not a murderer. Her phone cover has a smiling blue sunflower on it. If you're reading this, please come back. Please seek...
Hello and welcome to Daytime, your place for scary stories, straight from the horror forums of Reddit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more horror tales of things that go bumping the night. On tonight's episode, a man stuck in a traffic jam decides it's a good idea to grab an iPad when he's in a sudden car crash. So, always pay attention to the road, because the coma really changed me.
Last year I was in an accident. There was a traffic jam and I was stuck for 20 minutes. I decided it was a good time to bring out my iPad, so I took off my seatbelt and leaned into the back seat to get it from my gym bag. Seconds later, a car rear-ended me at 65 miles per hour. I smashed my head into the dashboard so hard that it was like turning off a light. It took 13 hours of surgery, 5 weeks in a coma, and 8 months of physical therapy to get me back on my feet. On paper, that's the end of the story. But there's more to tell. I brought something back from the coma. It is so hard to describe my experience. You completely lose track of time. So a passing thought can take an instant or an afternoon. There is no way to tell. You can be completely aware of everything that happens around you, and yet you can't recall anything anyone has said. You can become hyper-focused on a smell in a particular part of the room, but don't feel a single thing when someone gives you a shot or stretches your legs. It is like floating in an empty black room with twinkling stars of cohesive thought floating just out of reach. I could have been alone for mere minutes or weeks before I finally met him. There is no way to tell. But there was someone there to keep me company. There, in the void. I first heard him as a distant voice, calling out to me. There was something inside me, telling me to keep my mouth shut, but I just couldn't. I was scared and alone. I answered the call. The first time I saw him in my mind's eye, he was tall, probably about a head taller than me. He was thin, hairless, and completely nude. He seemed tired. We could barely understand each other, as if we spoke different languages. Still, he stayed with me, occupying my thoughts. After a while, we started to sound alike. We started having conversations, we started making jokes, telling stories, getting to know each other. Again, it could have been minutes, it could have been weeks, and I don't remember anything about it. There was just the sensation of having him there, of having company in the nothingness. Still, a few of his words stood out. I'm nobody, he said once. In so many ways, I'm nobody. And sometimes, you are too. So that's what I called him, the nobody. As time passed, I realized I'd made a mistake. As my body struggled to wake up, the nobody tried his best to keep me around for just a little longer. He wanted a friend and companion in the dark, someone to get to know and share his experiences with. I don't remember what he told me, but I remember how it made me feel. It made me feel dread and existential terror, like there was something I desperately wanted to forget, something I wish I didn't know. Luckily, I don't remember it, thank God. But the nobody wanted me to know. He kept telling me these awful things, as if to make me sympathetic to his state of being. He wanted me to give up and just stay there with him, but I wouldn't budge. I was determined to wake up and put this entire thing behind me for however many years I had left to live. He got frustrated, and with every frustration he changed his form. His fingers would grow longer, his arms thinner. His head would grow pale and elongated, his mouth rounder like a leech. On the good days, he'd look like himself. On the bad days, I had to hide, listening to him, trying to sense my thoughts in the dark. But the day came when I could finally feel my body again. The stars in that empty void were turning into suns, and blotches of thought were connecting. A finger connected to a hand, connected to an arm. Eyes twisting and turning, trying to blink. In the final moments of my coma, I struggled so hard that my entire being was screaming the effort into the void. I'd either wake up or stay there forever. All or nothing. At first, I was failing, falling deeper into the void. Then a surge, the nobody, lifted me up and carried me into the light of thought. I woke up. Those 5 weeks just seemed like a murky memory, an afterthought. Something I've left behind, but not quite forgotten. I still have certain memories left, clear as day, but none of them as vivid as that of the nobody. If I had artistic talent, I could paint him from memory. I could spot him in a crowd of 100 people. I could have heard a single word in a crowded room, and I'd recognize his voice. To me, he was at the front of my memory. Still is. During my physical therapy, I brought it up with my nurse. She didn't laugh at me, but didn't take it very seriously either. People have all kinds of experiences, she argued. Some come back speaking different languages or thinking there's someone else. To you, it was all real. But here in the real world, it is not. You are you, and there is no one else. Try to find comfort in that. Of course, I tried, but I couldn't. It started with sleepwalking. Not much and not far, but enough to make me worry. I live alone, and waking up standing in the middle of a cold shower is not something I'd ever recommend. Or waking up with your mouth full of olives, choking on a kernel. I just figured it was a result of my brain damage. I told my doctor about it, but they didn't pay too much attention. They were more worried about signs of fatigue and dizziness. Still, my memory of the nobody was so vivid, I could imagine myself seeing him. I often got the feeling that he was right behind me if I just turned around quick enough. I'd enter a dark room, knowing he was there, making me afraid to turn on the lights. I would stare at an empty space, knowing that he would appear if I wasn't vigilant enough. I expected him at every turn, at every corner. He was real, but I also knew that there was no way he could be. Then there was an incident. It wasn't bad, but it looked bad. I was at a coffee shop ordering a latte and a bun when I suddenly fainted. Bang, lights out. I don't have any memory of what happened, but people in the coffee shop had freaked out. The ambulance came, 2 people were propping my head up with their jackets. They checked my pulse and breathing, and I was fine. I was just, lights out. The tests were inconclusive. Sure, there were some inconsistencies, but none of them were out of the ordinary. I'd been in a coma for weeks and only just recently started my physical therapy. There was sure to be readings that were out of the ordinary. So I got back home with a fairly decent bill of health. There was only one thing that bothered me. They'd gotten my height wrong. I'm a solid 5'9", but according to the tests, I was at least 6'1". I'd also lost no less than 12 pounds since my last checkup. At first I thought it was in my head. My fingers were starting to look longer. I was losing a bit of my complexion. I made excuses for all of it. I never go outside, I'd say. It's just the weight loss making me look taller. But it wasn't that simple. The next few nights proved that. The sleepwalking got worse. The final straw was waking up in front of the bathroom mirror with the words, "Nobody loves you," written in blood. I'd shaved my head and brushed my teeth so violently, my mouth tasted raw flesh. I wasn't even pale anymore, I was pallid. Of course, the nobody loves me. I was his only friend in that place between worlds. That hollow, dark place. Over the upcoming weeks, the changes would become more obvious. I'd grow another 2 inches and lose another 20 pounds. My hair didn't grow back, and I lost hair in other places as well. I was having trouble with my teeth, and I was getting these violent coughs. My rib cage was aching from the coughing, and I got a prescription for asthma medication. It didn't help. I barely recognized myself in the mirror anymore. I started to look like him. Sometimes I'd hear him, just as I fell asleep. That bump in the night had a voice, thanking me for bringing him along. In the next breath, he'd praise himself for saving me. "Nobody helped you," the voice would say. "Nobody got you here." 6 months into my physical therapy, I was barely recognizable. A thin membrane had grown in my throat, effectively separating my voice into 2 pipes. One light, one dark, which spoke simultaneously. The doctor had a fancy word for it, and we tried to schedule surgery for it, but my insurance wouldn't cover it. It was the kind of condition one does not simply get, but something you just have. Hence, I couldn't have gotten it as a result of the accident. It had to be pre-existing, even though it wasn't. They said the same about my fingers. Fingers don't just grow. I could literally show the growth measure from day to day, but it didn't matter. My canines also grew longer. They'd poke a hole in my bottom lip at night. Not that I'd sleep much anyway. I was always tired. I'd dread going to sleep, so I started relying on sleeping pills. At best, I'd have a dreamless night that lasted 4 hours or less. At worst, I'd be twisting and turning in a cold sweat for 14 hours straight. Night and day float together when you live that kind of life. And sometimes, he'd come visit me, the nobody. I'd feel his presence lying there next to me, sometimes thanking me, sometimes praising himself. Except now, we had the same voice, the same double-piped voice, making us sound like 2 people speaking at once in a gruesome vibrato. Twin. One night, as I brushed my teeth, I saw him in the mirror. I could feel my face twisting and turning at his whim. We were having a conversation, wide awake, through my body. He smiling at me through a face I barely recognized as my own. "I'll stop," he made me say. "I want you to be comfortable." "Leave me alone," I'd say in a different tone. "Just leave me." "No," I laughed. "We're out. We're free. Just listen to me, and it will all be fine." It was the second time I should have ignored him. The second time he called out to me. But I was too tired. I listened. At first, his demands seemed reasonable. He had different dietary restrictions, different things he liked. As long as I kept him happy, he allowed me to sleep, and my changes didn't progress. My canines even shrunk a bit. It was small things like drinking milk instead of water, eating ham instead of cheese, going to bed at the break of dawn instead of sunset. Little things, but they added up fast. Soon, he didn't even have to ask me to do it. I'd just do it. Then it got worse. He'd want me to take long midnight walks, to stay inside during the day, to turn off the lights and put bed covers over the windows, to eat a raw chicken breast, to eat charcoal, to eat cockroaches, flies and worms, to sleep in an ice-filled tub curled up in a ball. Step by step, I did it all. I barely even noticed the changes. I was growing isolated from friends and family who barely recognized me. I'd grown a third windpipe, and there'd be bones poking out from the side of my ribcage. My yawns would reveal a mouth twice the size of what I used to have. I tried going back to the doctor, but I heard the nobody scream in the back of my head. I'd just gotten off the bus when I stopped. I'll bite your tongue off. I'll chew it. Swallow it. You'll taste your own stomach acid if you don't turn back home. I listened. I tried not to, but I did. I'm writing this because I don't know where this will end. My physical therapy came to an abrupt end. I can't go back to work. I can't go to my family. He doesn't allow it. Instead, he's giving me strange instructions. Addresses I've never been to. Names of people I've never met. He's having me read articles about distant places, about events that happened to other people. Not even big news or anything, just very specific things. An apartment fire in Minnesota, for example. Who cares? And that's the weirdest thing. I care. I really honestly care. I'm excited to do these things, to adapt. I feel stronger and more connected to myself with every submission. I like the taste of the things I eat. I sleep better in the places he makes me stay. And yet, I know that isn't me. Not the real me. This, right here. This is the real me. These words might be the last part of what it means to actually be me. I don't want to lose myself completely, but I know better than to torture myself against an inevitable conclusion. The nobody whispered truths about what we are and what we mean for weeks. He told me the way things really are and what it means to be human. And honestly, I'm not a fan.
Hello and welcome to Daytime, your place for scary stories straight from the horror forums of Reddit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more horror tales of things that go bump in the night. On tonight's episode, a man working to stop a riot have a more than interesting experience when it can't be found. So, where did everyone go? Because I can't find the missing riot.
Riot gear is heavy, but there's a comfort to it. You get used to it, and it is built to be worn for a long time. But sitting there in the back of that RCV, I didn't know what to expect. The order had come out of nowhere. We were told there were at least 350 people rioting, and the scene was getting worse by the minute. There were already squads on site putting down a perimeter, but I still had no idea what to expect. The others were nervous. They were psyching themselves up. Louis was playing music in his headphones, loud enough for me to hear it, 3 seats away. The other officers were checking their gear, going through their checklists. We'd stopped asking questions. There was nothing more to tell about what we were stepping into. When the doors sprung open, we were ready for anything. Shields up, we stepped out. We expected yelling, screeching megaphones, sirens, fire. But what we ran into was possibly the one thing we didn't know how to handle: a completely empty street. All 350 people who'd been there just 15 minutes earlier were gone. There were large cardboard signs without prints. Gas masks and improvised weapons littered the sidewalk. A nearby store had been looted, and there were signs of sporadic violence, but not a soul there. A couple of pigeons were inspecting a lost jacket. I'd never seen anything like it. Sure, some gatherings dissolved, but not before the police arrived. "Check for bystanders," the captain called out. Someone had to see something. I wasn't sure what to think. I walked up to Louis, who'd picked up a spray can. What do you make of this? I asked. Something's up, he said, handing over the spray can. It's empty. So? Louis stretched out his arms, making a point. Where's the graffiti? As we took a walk around town, it became increasingly clear that everyone had heard some sort of commotion, but no one had any idea what happened. I talked to an elderly couple who told me they'd heard shouting and glass breaking, but they had no idea what it was about or where everyone went. Do you know what they were protesting? I asked. Some legislation, probably, said the elderly man. Always something. Did you hear anything? No, can't say I did, he clarified. They chanted something, but I can't tell what. But you heard it? I asked. You sure you heard something? Yeah, he insisted. Just can't remember what. Things were getting stranger. Traffic cams didn't show anyone leaving or entering the area, and the surveillance cameras in nearby buildings hadn't caught anything. The convenience store camera had been broken for years. Still, we knew for a fact that there had been people there. We were ordered to expand the search and to start knocking doors. Some of us, me included, suited back down to our uniforms. Louis and I started knocking doors at a nearby apartment complex. For the first 2 floors, no one had heard or seen anything. All we got was confused looks and shrugs. Most had heard something, but that was all we got. It wasn't until we reached the 3rd floor that we met someone who had a few more answers. Apparently she'd been out to buy groceries from the corner shop. The street was packed, she said. They came out of nowhere, all ragged, wearing these weird masks. Not like the anonymous masks, more like, I don't know, hard to explain. As we kept knocking doors, we heard the intermittent reports coming in. Over at the student housing area, they'd found an entire floor of empty rooms. Over 30 student rooms, suddenly abandoned. There used to be a month-long waiting list for students to even apply for a spot there. So 30 rooms suddenly empty out of nowhere was absurd. Still, no one seemed to know anything about it. That seemed to be the common theme. Everyone knew there had been people living there, but there were no details about them. No one knew their age, names, gender, or what they'd studied. These rooms had been used until just earlier that week, but all of a sudden, they were just abandoned. 30 rooms don't just become available out of nowhere. People need help moving their things. There had to be cars coming in and out of the parking lot. Someone somewhere had to know something, and yet they didn't. Many hours later, the sun started to set. We still had no answers. Reports were written up, the night shift took over, and I went home with a whole bunch of questions in the back of my mind. I took the scenic route through the tunnel and over the bridge by the old campgrounds. Then, as I passed the riverside, I noticed an abandoned car by the side of the road. Now, I usually take that road about 3 times a week, and I hadn't seen any abandoned vehicles there previously. This was new. Thinking someone might have run out of gas or popped a tire, I decided to stop and help. I pulled over and got a closer look at the car. A white Toyota, probably a lease, new and shiny. The passenger side door was open, but the car was empty. I had the strange feeling that I'd seen that car before, but I couldn't put my finger on where. I was getting nervous, and I didn't even know why. I called out with a loud, "Hello!" but there was no one around to answer. I noticed the high grass leading down to the river had been pushed down, forming a path. Someone had stepped out and, seemingly in a hurry, ran in a straight line away from the car. Following the trail, I reached the edge of the river. Suddenly, the tracks just stopped. I noticed something half buried in the riverbank. It was this strange white-faced mask, made out of reinforced plaster. It was heavy with a double set of clasps on the back. But the strangest thing about the mask was, by far, the face. It had this strange, neutral expression. The eyes had different sizes, and the mouth was half open. Not as in a smile, but in slight surprise. I'd never seen anyone wear one of those before, and it looked custom-made. Maybe it was related to the riot? I returned to my car and reported the abandoned vehicle. The mask, however, I kept. There was a story there. As I got home that night, I had the strangest feeling of being watched. My 2 German shepherds, Jazzy and Blues, seemed equally on edge. Living alone, they can be a bit of a handful at times, but I love them nonetheless. As I was milling about in the kitchen making dinner, the 2 of them just sat by the back door and stared out. They aren't the kind of dogs to get easily distracted, and they weren't barking. They were just sitting there, like they were waiting for something to happen. I took my dogs out for their evening walk, but I couldn't avoid the feeling of being watched. Jazzy would stop every now and then and look over his shoulder, and Blues was making strange whining noises. And yet, we were alone. No ominous winds blowing, just a long, silent walk, and this unwelcome feeling that something was horribly wrong, like I was missing something obvious. As I spread myself out in my king-size bed, I took a final look at the mask I'd found by the river. It was large, too large for me, and there was something strange about the expression. I'd set it down in my sock drawer at the far end of the room. Had the expression changed? As I got to the station the next morning, everyone was already up in arms. Louis seemed to be on his fourth cup of coffee. "That car you called in?" he said, pointing at me with his whole hand. "That was just one. There are dozens. An entire parking lot down by the diner. 2 more cars by the railway station. Probably more out by the campgrounds." "No shit? So whose is it? Who are these people?" "That's the thing," Louis laughed. "Unregistered. Every single one. Unregistered. No names, all invalid plates, no insurance registry." "You're kidding." "I fucking wish," he laughed. "This is gonna be a nightmare. Grab a file and a coffee, we're on overtime." Our lieutenant had brought in a plate of danishes and about a dozen coffees from a nearby shop. That was never a good sign. Cars were getting towed and impounded. I was in charge of registration and organizing pickup, but it was clear that this was a bigger effort than expected. Even with a good pace, it'd be a 12-hour workday. At one point, I just started photocopying registration forms and just signing them, left and right, just changing the letters of the license plate. As our lieutenant brought in Chinese food, I took a short break. I started noticing a few things around the office. Nothing big, but slightly out of place. For example, there were a few workstations unattended, and we seemed a bit understaffed. I could have sworn we used to be more people. It just felt a bit empty. I didn't get off work until 9:20. Jazzy and Blues had to stay with my sister for the night. It was hard to explain to her exactly why we were working so much overtime and what was going on. A riot without rioters. People disappearing, leaving their cars and homes behind. And then there was that something. That feeling I was missing something. And back home, I still had that strange mask waiting for me. I stopped to grab some groceries on my way home. As I walked out of the store, I saw a notice in the window asking for new part-timers. It looked recent. I turned back and walked up to the cashier, a middle-aged man eager to get back to his crosswords. "Excuse me," I said. "Did you put up the help wanted ad?" "I did," he nodded. "You interested?" "Sorry, no." I smiled. "Did somebody quit?" "Nah, nothing like that," he sighed. "We're just having some scheduling problems." "What kind of problems?" Well, he put away his newspaper and leaned back in his chair. "I was supposed to go home about 4 hours ago, but we had no one to cover me. Do you usually have that?" "I think so, yeah." "So in a way, it's like someone's missing?" We looked at one another, trying to find the right words. He was about as stunned as I was. "Yeah," he nodded. "Yeah, like someone's missing." I decided to take a walk around town. It felt like my eyes were opening. The local cinema had a note on the front, informing customers about shorter opening hours. The parking lot by the gym seemed emptier than usual. And as I was about to turn back to my car, I noticed a golden retriever. It was still wearing a leash, but there was no one to hold it. As I approached it, it took off running. I called the station about the runaway dog and headed back home. That night, my house felt emptier than usual. I'd always lived larger than I needed to, but there was still something awkward about feeling small in your own home. I'd gotten that place years ago, figuring I'd start my own family someday. Still, things just hadn't worked out that way. It takes a special kind of person to date a cop, I suppose. After my evening workout and shower, I brushed my teeth. I couldn't help but notice how tired I looked. I wasn't sleeping right. There was something in the back of my mind that just couldn't surface. Even now, looking at myself, I could feel something missing. A piece of the puzzle, right in front of me. My stomach churned, but I wrote it off as stress. As I cleaned my toothbrush, a thought struck me. I opened the bathroom cabinet. On the bottom shelf were several items that just didn't seem to fit with the rest. A couple of brightly colored razors, a a box of tampons, bobby pins, makeup remover, tweezers, and an extra toothbrush. None of these were mine. Sure, whenever you've lived somewhere for a long time, you collect things that aren't your own. Still, this was something out of the ordinary. I lived alone, I always had. As I walked around the apartment, that churning in my stomach turned into a rock. I could see things a little clearer. The king-sized bed, which was far too large for me. An unused drawer in my closet, a half-empty coat rack. Finally, in my home office, I found a laptop that I didn't know the password to. How could I own a computer and not know how to use it? And the dogs. I usually didn't leave them at a doggy daycare or with my sister. Someone looked after them while I was at work, but who? Someone's missing, I muttered to myself. Jesus Christ, someone's missing. I opened my phone and scrolled back a few weeks. So many pictures. But most had been corrupted. Some were just black bars hinting at a colorful background. Others were just plain white. Most of my voicemails were just garbled, screeching nonsense. And there on my bedside table, an empty picture frame. I couldn't sleep that night. I didn't know what to do. It was that kind of night where I just closed my eyes and waited for sleep. But sleep never came. Instead, I had these vivid half-dreams. And no matter how much I twisted and turned, I couldn't get comfortable. Too warm, too cold. Finally, around 3 a.m., I brought out some extra pillows. Hugging them tight and burying my face in them, I felt something resembling peace, a familiarity, a shape that my body was aching to remember. And right there, on the edge of sleep, I heard something. S-O-R-R-Y. I sat straight up. The room was empty, too empty, if anything. "Who's there?" I called out. "Who are you?" But there was no response. There was no one there. Letting my paranoia take hold, I brought out my handgun and started checking all rooms. Finally, I settled in the living room. Sinking down into my sofa with a warm blanket, I fell asleep staring out the sliding glass door. I thought about calling in sick for work, but I couldn't leave Louie hanging. They were already working overtime, and I couldn't leave them like that. Instead, I took a long shower, chugged my morning coffee, and got dressed. I almost forgot to tie my shoes on my way out. The station was bustling with energy. Some of the night shift were still around, half sleeping at their desks. The lieutenant had once again brought in a plate of danishes and a dozen more coffees. The struggle wasn't over. Things were getting stranger throughout the day. We got called out by a landlord who wanted to find their missing tenant, but couldn't give us a name or a description. All they knew was that they were missing. There was also chatter around the station about abandoned bikes by the high school. A motel at the edge of town had started questioning why 3 of their rooms had been rented for a week, but there was no one there to use them. The rumor mill was running hot. I couldn't help myself. My anxiety grew as that little voice in the back of my head kept screaming at me that people had gone missing. A lot of people all at once. But the most awful feeling came, that empty picture frame on my bedside table. Why would I ever keep an empty picture frame by the bed? I got home around 7 p.m. that night. My sister was worried about me, but I told her it'd just be a few days. Things were still crazy, but I was getting by. Soon enough, it'd all die down. As I walked from room to room, I took off my socks and felt a caffeine headache starting to set in. Putting away my phone, a chill rushed up my spine. I wasn't alone. Looking down my unlit hallway, I didn't see anything. The lights were off, and the dark wallpaper didn't help. As my hand reached for the light switch, I heard a noise. S-T-O-P. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from the white mask I'd found. Peering into my bedroom, I saw the mask resting on top of my sock drawer. The expression had changed, going from a surprised neutral to a wide-eyed stare, mouth wide open. It had tipped to one side and was meeting my gaze. "What?" I said out loud, surprising myself. D-O-N-O-T. Nothing more than a faint whisper. It was clearly coming from the strange mask. My left hand started shaking, fingers uneasily resting on the light switch. D-O-N-L-O-O-K-A-T. It was a standoff. The mask was referring to whatever was waiting at the end of the hallway. I could barely hear myself think, my mind stuck between several simultaneous impulses. I could turn on the light and challenge whatever was there. I could get my gun. And yet, all I did was hold my breath and listen. There was no training to account for this stuff. There was no rational response. The hallway moved. At least that's what it looked like from where I was standing. Something so tall it reached the ceiling with ease started moving. This tall, elongated presence, dressed in what looked like a ruined hoodie and faded, dirt-stained jeans. Something that could pass for a person at a distance, like camouflage. Long, leather-like fingers covered its face, hiding it from me. I let go of the light switch, fumbling backwards. Snagging my foot on the corner of a carpet, I fell flat, knocking the air out of my lungs. It took a step further. An impossibly long arm reached into my bedroom. Without even leaving the hallway, it grabbed the mask from my sock drawer. Y-O-U-K-N-L-O. O-K, no W-W. D-A-N-K, yo you. It sounded sincere. It was getting closer. I was crawling backwards, kicking myself away until I felt my back press up against a wall. The mask writhed, arranging itself. The nose getting smaller, eyes thinner, cheeks puffier. It was turning into a woman's face, the hoodie almost resembling long black hair in this light. The creature leaned over me, and as the face came closer, I forgot how to breathe. Suddenly, a woman's voice. I-A-M-S or Rye. I closed my eyes as it drew closer. I couldn't focus. I held up my hands to defend myself, but it was nothing but instinct. I wonen, F-O-R-G-Et-E-U. The words were whispered into my ear. I knew that voice. I'd heard it. That voice was the voice of sleepy Sunday mornings and Netflix binging. The voice of homemade lasagna and long road trips with jazzy and blues. I'd heard it 1,000 times, and suddenly I was hearing it for the first time. As my heart broke, a pair of ice-cold plaster lips kissed my cheek. I screamed. I barely even noticed the other people. They'd come through the back door and the bedroom windows, at least a dozen of them, all dressed in the same white masks. They flocked around the tall figure, looking down at me with weapons at the ready. Chains, bats, lead pipes. Some were breathing heavily, others just stared at me. They all hid behind their masks, their faces distorted in impossible proportions. I pulled my hair, trying to understand why I was in such pain. Why was I missing someone so much, without having even the slightest memory of them? One by one, they all stepped out of my front door, leaving me broken on the hallway floor. All that remained was a gift. My own white mask left on the bedroom windowsill. It looked sad. I've had a hard time understanding what happened the day of the riot. I think there had to be people there, but we just collectively forgot about them. Maybe it wasn't even a riot. The first time I tried wearing that mask, I could have sworn I heard that woman's voice again, calling out to me, asking about my day. Since then, I've worn it every night as I go to bed. The pillows I hug feel more alive, warmer, and sometimes I can almost see her in the corner of my eye. But it affects me. I get this feeling that this is a dangerous path to take, and I'm not sure I can turn back. Even just wearing it every now and then is the only thing that stops my heartache for a while, as I trick myself into thinking she's there. And I know she's real in some way. I got the password for the laptop. Lately, my mask has started to change expression. It has gone from tragically sad to this manic-looking stare. I feel better than ever wearing it. I can laugh again, dance again. I can feel a familiar warmth when I lay down to sleep. I can feel a hand on my shoulder when I cook. Something that guides me to what spices to use to make everything taste as it used to. I'm starting to remember things, details, words. I don't care if it is too late. I don't think I can ever